Brother's strategy is all about speed, non-cutting time, chip-to-chip time, spindle running. The days of one cut through steel, they've all gone because they put too much load on spindles, too much load on tooling, and don't work.
Welcome to the MTD podcast. I'm Gio and Lyndsey hosting today's podcast, and I have the pleasure to be at Whitehouse Machine Tools in Coventry, joined by three legends. Firstly, Neville Wilson, a massive legend in the industry, Ian Hayes, and our very own Lyndsey Vickers. Welcome
hello,
to the podcast.
Gio.
Brilliant day today, brilliant to be out and about during these crazy times. Hopefully they'll get back to some kind of normality at some point. Today we're going to be focusing on the Brother Machine Tools and machining strategies. I know you've got a large range of machine tools at Whitehouse Machines that you offer, but you know, firstly I'm going to start with you, Neville.
Who is a legend?
Who is an absolute legend. Firstly, just tell us about your experience in the industry, but then we'll move on to the strategies.
In the industry?
It's been 51 years.
I've been an engineer for 51 years.
Wow.
I've been at Whitehouse Machine Tools for nearly 26 years.
Wow. And what did you
Have you learnt anything so far?
Not a lot.
Too old.
So did you start as an apprentice?
I did, yeah.
And back in the day, you know, the strategies, the cutting strategies were completely different to how they are now, aren't they?
Well, the whole machines are totally different. And I mean totally different.
Explain how.
I mean, I served my apprenticeship at Alfred Herbert's, who were in the early days of NC machines, which used to run off paper tape, unproven. Wow.
And in regards to the cutting strategies and the tools that you use, can you just give us a bit?
Tooling is totally different. Tooling has advanced vastly over the years.
And you've seen all this change.
I've seen all this change over the years and gone with it. But they've still got the same basic principles of engineering. Just because you cut quicker doesn't mean you lose the basic engineering skills.
And what are then basic engineering?
Work holding is predominantly one, and then total method of how you're going to approach a job. Right. You know, there are people out there now that just think you just look at a machine and press a button when it does it for you. Yeah. You know, they don't realise just how much engineering skill has to go in to produce that part.
Well, we'll touch upon that in a little bit more detail in a bit now. Ian, tell us about your background and how you got into engineering.
Yeah, I was in engineering from the day I left school when I was 16. So I've been with Whitehouse Machine Tools now for 3 years. Previous to this role, I was a shop floor manager at a subcontractor in Leicester. But I also served my time doing apprenticeship and going forward through there.
And have you learnt anything from Neville?
How to be grumper.
You know, in fact, I've got to tell the audience they've got 2 mugs of, is it tea or coffee you've got?
Coffee.
Coffee, to keep them going. Ian's mug says, I'm an engineer. To save time, let's just assume I'm never wrong. And Neville has one with the iconic Mr. Grumpy on the front of it. This is brilliant. We've had quite a laugh this morning as well. There's a good atmosphere here.
Just about to say, I mean, when I used to try and sell Neville stuff in the past, he was grumpy and he used to make me feel very uncomfortable at times. But today he's been very happy. I'd say he's actually...
Yeah, but you were trying to sell me something. Salesmen don't do very well in here trying to sell me anything.
You did a good job, Gio, because the first thing he said about a good machine tool and strategy is work holding. So you certainly did something.
You've done something right, Lyndsey. Now, Lyndsey, you've been learning all about the new Brother Speedio and Feedio today.
Yes.
And this podcast is completely focusing on the new strategies and the strategy predominantly the Brother have and offer. What's your take on it?
So what I've learned, and I said this as soon as I walked in, I said more and more people are not talking about taking deeper cuts. They're talking about higher speeds and feeds with lighter cuts. And I think when you look at something like the Speedio, this is a fast machine. It's very versatile. It's still got that power behind it, but it's all about making parts exceptionally fast. And they're making them so fast that you need to have another machine, a robotic arm or something, feeding that, hence the Feedio, where it has got a robotic arm with a conveyor. So you're basically saying the parts are coming off really, really quickly. You don't really want someone there standing there, paying for someone just to load a machine, and you can have that lights out running. That's essentially what those two, a machine and the robot loader, is all about.
It's a phenomenal machine. Now, Nev, tell us about the strategy from Brother and kind of touch upon what the points that Lyndsey's made, please.
Well, Brother's strategy is all about speed, non-cutting time, chip-to-chip time, spindle running, cutting metal. Now, the days of 25mm cutter, 25mm deep, one cut through steel, they've all gone, because they put too much load on spindles, too much load on tooling, and don't work. And by using what's called high-speed machining, whereby you will take lighter cuts, instead of trying to take one cut at 25mm through, you will do what is called tricoidal milling, which are fast, light cuts.
And what benefits does this have, not only to the productivity gains that you'll get, but to the machine tool, the cutting tools, the
Surface finish?
Surface finish.
Surface finish improves, tool life improves, there's no load on the spindle.
Yeah, and Ian, in regards to kind of Nev mentioned the low power consumption. How does this work?
Well, basically with the low power consumption, because you're not actually driving the spindle into the material really hard, because you're taking fast light cuts, it's not taking as much power to drive the spindle. Hence the reason you got a lower power consumption on the machine. And again, like Neville said, you actually putting less stresses through the machine, so all your axis on your machines are going to last much longer. You ain't going to need to replace ball screws or anything like that.
So metal removal rates are increased, but power consumption are decreased. So it sounds to me like you're winning in every single area.
It's a win-win with the correct strategy, which takes a long time to learn. A lot of CAD/CAM people now have got expertise in high-speed machining. And when you get complex parts, you are reliant on CAD/CAM. But it is the same procedure of fast, light cuts.
The turning was really impressive, wasn't it, Lindsey?
Well, I just wasn't expecting to have that power. And when you showed us the part and you were, like you say, doing the intermittent cuts, I just wasn't expecting you to say, like, essentially this is a mill and a lathe at the same time. I think that's what it is. And I think, we often talk about horizontal machining and the swarf falling away, and you just watch that and it's just incredible how you're almost bringing the two together, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, Ian, can you explain how that works a little bit more? I mean, you mentioned that this is the latest model with increased torque in the C-axis. And can you explain? I mean, it was intermittent cutting that the part was in. Explain how it all works.
Taking the corners off, weren't you?
Yeah, so obviously we're using a square billet and then we're turning it into a cone. So we were doing intermittent cutting. It's a 2.5mm depth of cut we were using as well. 1,000 RPM with 0.5 per rev. So it's not hanging about, it's quite quick. And obviously with the torque of the machine, it's quite powerful. Again, like you said, it's intermittent cutting, so there's a bit of a bang in there, but it's not actually holding the machine up at all.
It was very, very impressive. I mean, when you're looking to do a mill turn part on a machine like that, you wouldn't necessarily assume that machine had the capabilities of doing so. Now, Neville, you mentioned to me that was a company that have invested in this Speedio and Speedio cells, where it was taking the company a week to do the same amount of parts. Now it's taking them
a day now.
Wow.
Because it is robot fed. The machine will check that it's there to be machined, and they can leave it alone. Somebody has to just keep loading the belt.
And what's interesting is the part can go on the belt, but it doesn't have to be in the exact same position. As long as it's kind of facing the correct way, it's got a vision system, hasn't it? So then it can measure where the part is, what angle it is. It doesn't have to be in the same place every time, and then pick it up, and it knows, doesn't it?
That's right. The camera's set up to plus or minus 20 degrees, so there's a big room for error there for when humans are loading it on there. So obviously we've got to allow for human error. And with the vision system, it picks all that up, so it will orientate round. If it has been loaded, put on the wrong way, the robot will just ignore it, and it will just carry on.
And there's an increased payload of 20 kilograms. Is that right? So it can be 10 either side.
Yeah. So we've got a total payload of 20 kilograms on the actual robot. So you can have a heavy part of 10 kilo each side.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, you know, you state that a company was doing them parts in a week, now they're doing them in a day. I mean, it speaks for itself. I mean, you know, do you ever get Brother users that go anywhere else once they've invested in Brother?
We find that once we sell a Brother machine to a customer, they will come back for more and more and more.
And what are the downsides to Brother? You know, what if there are any? What are they?
You can't ask them that, Gio.
The only
Not at all.
The only downside to a Brother is having to educate people of how to use a 30 spindle machine and using different strategies. 30 taper tool holders, different strategies to what they're used to.
Does that put people off? You know, so kind of, is it changing mindsets? Is that
it is a change? It is a change in mindset.
And is that kind of the barrier to entry then?
Yeah, it's like I say, trying to get people to see the small tools and feel like, you know, that machine ain't going to be strong enough to do our parts. A lot of people just assume that the Brother can only cut aluminium. That is totally wrong. We can cut stainlesses, we cut steels, so we cut all sorts of materials. And I say, like Neville said, it's just a case of changing your strategies to go along with your tooling.
Now we touched upon the Speedio, but you've got a large range of different machine tools that Brother offer. Can you talk us through the different ranges of machine tools?
Well, the range will start at a standard 3-axis from 300mm X, 500mm X, 700mm X, and a metre in X. 22 tools in the magazine, 21 tools in the magazine, which could possibly one of the limitations of Brother is the magazine capacity. From there, you then talk about twin pallet machines.
Put your teeth back in.
I know. The advantage of pallet machines is you can load the outer pallet while the inner pallet is cutting metal. And your chip to chip to bring the outer pallet in is 3 seconds. So your load time is 3 seconds.
Now, Lyndsey, you were talking about how Brother originated, and you know them from other kind of...
I'm not professing to be a great sewer, but it was sewing machines, wasn't it? And then printers, they do... I think the name Brother is definitely associated with technology.
And back in them days, you know, it was productivity that was needed.
That
was the necessity.
Brother is all about production. If you want to buy a jobbing machine, job to job to job to job, you don't buy a Brother. Brother are an out-and-out production machine.
And how's business been for you guys during these crazy times?
It's been okay. It's been good on the sales side of it. It's we've sold quite a few machines to the medical industry, and also looking into the automotive side where people are buying aftermarket parts for the motorbikes and that business has kind of ramped up. Whether that's because
people have more money to spend and more time on their hands now, so they're looking to tart up stuff that they've got as a...
In fact, I heard that about the aerospace industry the other day. I think Ian went to a company and, you know, we're talking about aerospace. However, this company were doing almost like luxury, you know, like the smaller planes, and people, as you say, had more time, so they were tarting them up and they did different parts.
Yeah.
And so there's... you know, with this current climate and everything, you know, it is a lot of doom and gloom. Of course, we see it on the news, but there is money moving. It's just where it's moving to, isn't it? And it's changing. I think, you know, on a kind of deeper note, everyone is going through this huge transition of a learning curve, because buying strategies, like cutting strategies, are changing, and we've all got to kind of work out where it's going.
Absolutely.
It's a bit the unknown at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It is unknown, but trying to educate people is probably the difficult part of how to get the best out of Brother equipment.
Yeah, education is absolutely key, and I think diversification is another kind of big element. I think that you're touching upon, Lyndsey, as well. You know, in the way people need to change. But one thing we've noticed is that people that have invested in the latest technologies and some of the products, such as your products that include automation as a part of the actual solution, they're still busy, aren't they? Even during this time.
I think it's the fact that there's, just to, you know, kind of cover what I've just said, I think it's evolving. And when you've got machines like a Feedio feeding a Speedio machine, love the names, by the way, it is actually, that is the first stage of people evolving, because they're changing their ways. They're maybe not having one machinist on a machine, you know, the labour of putting it into the machine. That machinist can go and do something else. And so then there's the diversification. We've been into machine shops and they're saying we've just had to diversify and cut different materials. That's how we've survived.
Well, the only way that people will survive now and to be able to compete with the Chinese market, price-wise, they've got to invest in technology. And Brother is the ultimate to go to for speed. Therefore, you can cut your charges down, you can sell your product cheaper, and you can bring in more work. You can actually bring work back from China into this country and be competitive.
It's like with the Feedio system, you can have one person running 3 or 4 cells now. So if you've got the Feedio on the Speedios, you could have 3 or 4 of them set up in your factory, and you can have one person manning all these machines,
So,
which we've seen.
going back to our question, Ian, you were in Ireland recently. Are Brother users still busy even during this time, or more busy than others maybe?
More busy than others, I'd say, especially in the medical industry, obviously with all the ventilators what are being produced and all the medical equipment what's needed. But going back towards what we were saying earlier about the people spending, even on, like, say, with the aftermarket parts for motorbikes and push bikes, they're just getting busier and busier.
And it's kind of over-emphasising what we've kind of tried to touch upon in this podcast. I know we've gone a little bit off track at times, but strategy is key. The Brother strategy is not a gimmick; it's a proven. And I think that the people that have invested into Brother technology keep investing and keep benefiting from it. Any last thoughts, guys?
I've got a question. If I want to change, or my business may be struggling a little bit, and I'm trying to go, right, okay, what you're telling me is I need to kind of think differently. Who do I go to? What's my first step?
Basically, you give us a bell, you come over to us, and we can explain different strategies, different machining types, and we can take you forward from there.
Yeah.
We like to take potential customers to existing customers.
Yeah.
To see how they're using the machines, how they are benefiting from the machine. And on the Whitehouse logo outside it says Advanced Engineering Solutions.
Perfect.
Which are our forte.
Perfect. And I don't think there's a better way to end this podcast. So, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. I know, Lyndsey, you've got to shoot off up the motorway, so we're going to have to wrap this one up. But I think that definitely we'll have to come back and do a part 2. Guys, thank you very much. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please comment and leave your views, or get in touch with Whitehouse Machine Tools to find out more.
Thanks for listening to the MTD podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on MTDCNC.com.